Hello everybody, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make this trap right here. This is a rat or mouse trap that's been used by a whole bunch of people in Southeast Asia and Polynesia for quite a long while. I most commonly hear it called by the name Tilong. I believe that's from one of the Indonesian languages. But I'm actually going to be showing you how to make this trap in the style of the indigenous Siraya or Pingpu people from Taiwan. So we could just call it the Takuliang Vihit, and that just means rat trap in Siraya. So let's begin. Okay, so first thing we've got here is our piece of bamboo. I'm going to be making this trap for quite some large rats. So I've got this, maybe let's say 5-6 centimeters in diameter or so. So we want a section of it that's got no cracks in it. And with the type we're making today, we're making it so that there's no node closing off one end, because that's how, I'm not sure why, but that's how they have it a lot over in Taiwan, I've seen. So let's start cutting. I'm gonna cut it off right here because there's a crack right there. When you're cutting bamboo, what I like to do is I like to cut all the way around so that it doesn't split any of the bamboo. Like if you cut just straight down through it, it'll often leave out little splinters that can either be pulled up or get wedged into whatever. So as I do this, I'm going to be turning the bamboo, making sure I follow the same line, keep inside the same groove. There we go. I've cut it all the way through now. There are no splits on the edges. That part's got the crack in it right there, you can see. Right there. Then, the size you want it really, the length you want it can vary quite a bit. I'm going to say maybe just a little bit more than my hand, so I'm going to cut it off right about there, leave about that much. You always want to leave more than less in case you've cut it a bit too long or anything. You can always cut more off. If you cut it too short, then you can't add anything back on. So cut it maybe about right there. There we go. Now we got our piece right here. You can see it's hollow. So now we can set this long piece aside for some future projects, and we can get started with this. Okay, now we got our tube right here. First thing I'm gonna do, I like to do this, you don't really have to. I'm going to take my knife, and if you look right here, you can see that a lot of places on the edge are a bit frayed from cutting. So before I like to work, I like to take off some of those. Also taking off this little shelf right here on the end. There we go, that's the first side done, and you just need to do the second side. Now what that does is it prevents all the little frays from getting caught on anything and eventually splitting off little pieces, which can cause splinters and all that, and you don't want that. Especially with bamboo, the splinters tend to be really sharp. Okay, now that that's been all cleaned up, we can start on the limb, and then after that we'll put our hole into it. So we can set this aside for now. Okay, so now for the limb, I've got this piece of bamboo I cut earlier. Just got a big piece of bamboo and cut a slit out of it. So first thing we want to do, remove these parts in the nodes here, those little dividing walls. We're going to want to smooth out every part of this bamboo before we start really working on it, because working on sharp bamboo is very not safe. The way bamboo is when it splits, it creates really sharp edges. So let's get rid of all of these here, and especially on the outside too, like this part. Okay, now we're ready to start working on it. So to shape it, we're going to want one side to have a spike on it and one side to have a bit of a taper. So let's say this is my spiked side, this is my tapered side. First, we want the spike to be maybe 4 fingers, 5 fingers, somewhere around there, not too large. Let's get... It really helps to cut bamboo when you've got a really nice sharp knife. So make sure your knife is nice and sharp. You can slice through it like butter pretty much. Everything goes really smoothly. Okay, other side. Now, you don't want this to come to an insanely sharp point, because otherwise it's just going to slowly wear down and lose its grip in the ground. So, like this here may be too sharp of an angle, so we're going to cut that down. So here we've actually made the tip somewhat blunted. Just a sec, get rid of some of these splintery bits. Okay. You can see on the end there, sort of made the tip kind of blunted. It's fine, it'll still stick into the ground really nice and easily, but it won't deteriorate too much after multiple uses. Okay, so now what you want to do is sort of get this side sort of nice and tapered. You don't want to start your taper too early. You don't want to start too late either. Maybe around here would be good, because you want a little bit of space down here from the spike, so that you want the thickest part to be around down here by the end of your spike. So then when you put the this limb into the tube, it won't move. So let's get going on that. Okay, so as you're doing this, you're going to end up with that same sharp edge from before. You may want to stop a couple times to get rid of that. Just watch your grip, make sure you're not holding it onto anywhere sharp so that you don't cut yourself. Okay, start on the other side. Get rid of a bit of this sharp edge here. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little edge off right here, all the way around, make it a bit more uniform. Now, you don't have to get this part flat. If you're using a thicker piece, you can get it flat. It just all depends on your piece of bamboo. You see what I've just done is I've removed the edge that will have been sticking out right here, so that it's nice and smooth. Last thing I'm going to do is mainly just to smooth it out. You can always use sandpaper or whatever afterwards as well. Just for the sake of being quick, I'm just going to use my knife. What you do is you just slide your knife along it. This should create a nice smooth surface. Hopefully devoid of any splinters and all of that stuff that can hurt you. Okay. There we go. We've got all the edges smoothed down. Except for right here, I might want to do a little bit more. There, that looks better. Okay, so now when you got that done, what we can do is carve in our notch at the end. So, what you do right here, leave maybe 1.5 centimeters down here, up to 2. Leave that open, and you're going to want to cut right there. So put a little bit of a cut there, score it up nicely. Then what you can do, carefully, I don't know if you can see it better, carefully cut towards that score you've just made. Okay, I just went a little bit past it, but that's okay. Okay, just keep doing that. And go backwards. And what helps here is you actually only slice part of the way, and then you lift your knife up to break out that little piece, because the way bamboo is, it quite likes to split. So when you do that, more often than not, it will split off for you, pretty nice and cleanly actually. After a certain point, you don't really need to worry too much about bumping it into it anymore. But you don't want to go into it with too much force, because then you may split the bamboo further. Okay, so we've got it tapered down into the notch there. We could, you see, it sort of left a bit of a Y shape there. We could just get rid of that. I suggest getting rid of it from this side at first, at least, and it doesn't cut into, you don't accidentally split it too much from this end, and it cuts into your notch. There we go. And there's our first half. Now we just gotta do the other end. Okay, so now you want to make sure it's lined up. So what you do, take your knife, line it up with the first notch, slide it over to the second one, and cut in. Make sure you got a nice deep score in there, so you know we're right where it's supposed to be. It looks pretty close. Make any adjustments by eye. You may want to move it maybe 0.5 millimeter to my left. That looks good. Then begin cutting. Same thing as last time. And there we go. We've got that all carved out, and that concludes our limb. You can see there's a nice taper all the way down, and then it ends in a point. Okay, so now we need to fit this limb into here, and to do that, first we want to see about what angle we want this to be poking out at. So I'd like to keep it around here. So that means we want our hole to be right around here. So let's grab the knife and mark that off. Right about there. Okay. And it's going to be maybe to there first. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to drill into it with my knife. Hold it with my feet. I'm doing this on the flat side of the bamboo. Some bamboo, when they grow, they've got these sides where the branches protrude out, and it makes a flat area. Some bamboo, they don't have that. Some parts of the bamboo, especially around the bottom, they've just got round all over. So I'm doing this on the flat side, which is going to be resting on the ground. Okay. I just want that to go into the chamber there. I've just barely got my way through. You put your finger under there. Unless you like really badly split your bamboo, which you shouldn't be by using too much force, you should be all good putting your finger underneath to see when your knife's through. And I've just about gotten through there. Okay, now what I like to do, instead of how a lot of people do, just start carving it out, I like to drill more holes first to sort of use as a guide. I'm going to do one to the right and one to the left. So then hopefully it will be able to accommodate the pole. Okay, now if you look inside of here, you can actually see there's a couple of holes. See that right there. So it'll adjust. Yeah. So next we're going to be carving it out. Let's get a bit of a closer look. Okay, so I'm just going to be using the very tip of my knife here. It's going to be a bit of a lengthy process doing this. You can also use like an X-Acto knife, anything like that. So you just want to make sure it's nice and sharp for the bamboo. You can also use files and all that stuff. So it's going to take a little bit of time. Okay, so now we've got that all carved out right there. I want to remind you to, every time you do this, you want to always check the alignment every so often that this spike is fitting through nicely. So now we've got this. It's time to put in all of our other holes. All right, so the first hole we want to be putting in here is the one that our trigger is going to be going into. So we want about a rat's head length into it. So I'd say maybe up to the second segment of the finger there. So I'm gonna start it almost right in the middle here. I'm just gonna score it really heavily. And with our saw, we're gonna wanna cut right on that line. That should be good. And now you can see inside of there, you've got a bit of a slit going through it. Now, from the same side that you have this on, you're going to want to start cutting into that to create sort of a mouth-like shape. Let's start that off. There we go. Now we got that carved out right there. Okay, so now what we have to do is bore in our holes. I like to do 2 in the front and 2 in the back. So the one in front is for the holding string and the one in the back is for the noose. So let's get those bored in. Our holding string holes can be significantly closer together. So let me get those up. Just gonna sort of poke at where I want them first. Maybe pinky finger length away or so. Should be good. I'm actually going to put them a little further up, but put them right about there. Okay. Now these holes, we want them to be a bit more precise, so I'm not going to be spinning the blade at all. I'm just going to be sort of circling it around like this. There we go. And clean up the edge. So we don't really have very much of a hole there. It doesn't really go all the way through too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go again from this side and open it up a little bit. Okay, there's one hole bored in. Time to do the next. I'll get back to you after that to do the other ones. Okay, so now we got the first pair of holes set in there. Looks like a little goofy face at this point. And we're going to have to do 2 more. One here and one here. Little cheekbones or whatever. So these ones I'd like to put further apart. Not too much though, so then it's easier for the noose to sort of slide around, up and down. I want to put it closer to the edges. So I'm going to say maybe right here and right here. And also we want these to be set fairly close to the other ones as well. So then we don't really lose too much distance. I'd say that's about a rat's head length or so. the other one and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm slowly following the light here, but anyways, I got the hole finished. Okay, next thing we need to do, there are two pieces we need to make. One piece is the trigger stick, and one piece is I'm not sure what to call it, just a stick that ties all the strings together. So for that, stick whatever you call it. Let's grab my trap over here. To measure how long we need it to be, we need it to be just a bit longer than from what I'd call the mouth to the last hole. So I'm gonna make it from maybe here to here. So the very end of the opening down to the edge. Now you can make this out of bamboo, you could just have a stick or anything. There we go. Now when it's still on here, I'm actually going to carve it out into at least somewhat resembling a circle shape, or more of an oval or so. Okay. Then we just cut this part off. There we go, popped it off. Now we got this little somewhat circular stick. Let me just clean up the end here. There we go. And that spans the distance between the end of the mouth and just the end of the bamboo. And then we can cut some grooves into this later. So now we can work on the trigger. So this trigger, what we're going to do, we're going to have sort of one side be a V shape and one side be a sort of more of a T shape. So let's cut down. I'm gonna say this side's gonna be the V shape. Go maybe. Right, you can measure it off here. So we want it to go all the way to the bottom of the trap there. So it's going to be around there. Right about there. Okay. So I'm gonna mark that off just a second. Okay, put two little marks in there and make those more defined. So what we're going to be doing is making a little ledge here, but first I'm going to carve out the actual shape of it. Shape is going to be a V shape. We're going to start right after that little little shelf. Carve it into the shape of a V. Okay, got that V shape in there. I'm going to carve this part down as well a bit. So then makes a flat surface. Then let's start carving that shelf in. So we want it to be nice and stuck in there, so we gotta score it. Be really careful at this part because we're cutting towards, gonna be cutting towards my fingers again. Alright, now we've got that all carved out. I'm going to carve a bit of a T shape here. That's going to serve as our, as a way of binding it. Okay. There we go. That's one half of it. I'm going to do the other. Again, just sort of use a knife as a guide to find your way across. That's about right. Okay. Right about there. Okay, so it's actually the next day now, because yesterday was getting a bit late. Anyway, so now we got all of our pieces assembled. I actually made a few strings. You're gonna need some strings for this trap. I made a few strings off camera. You can go check out some of my other trapping videos if you want to see how to make them. I'll put a link right here. So let's get started. Okay, so first things first, we need to put a noose at the end of our tube here. So I'm going to go through these two holes, string it through one end, pull it through, string it through the other. And I see a lot of people like doing just putting a knot on the end here to keep it from sliding out, so then when you like pull the noose, it just comes out like that and brings it up to the the roof. But personally, I like to actually form a loop at the end, so there is no chance of it jamming up or anything. And that's why I see in a lot of Pingpu and Siraya mouse traps like this, or rat traps. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to loop it around like that and do a reef knot. So a reef knot is pretty much just the same side. You do your first wrap around, you do it for the second one as well. So I've got this one short side, it goes over once and then it goes over the second time instead of having the long one go over the second time. I'm just gonna knot it up right there. It doesn't have to be too exact for this noose. And there's our reef knot. I'll keep it nice and secure. See, when I pull on it, it won't go back. Pull on it from here, it won't go down, and that's what you want. And so with that will make our noose down here. And so when we set it, we're going to set it just like that. So that's it just hugs to the walls of the bamboo. And so when it pulls up, it goes up to the roof. Okay, so next thing we have to do is we need to tie the string to our little stick right here. So optimally what we want is enough room so that when it's down, and you just pull the noose down into the chamber there. When it is down, it will sit right around where the holding string right here and the trigger will have it sit flat. So I think it'd be about right there. I'd like it to be right about there. So let's tie it off right there. And there we go. Nice and tight. So that sits right there like that when it's not down. Pull it on both sides, make sure it doesn't wiggle or anything. Yeah, it's all good. Alright. Okay, so now what we have to do is we need to put this limb into our tube right here. So same thing as before, it just fits into that hole we cut out earlier. Now, something I really want to point out is you do not want the inside of the bamboo here, that's the side that's sort of concave and all that, not the glossy side. You don't want that to be facing the way that it's bending. So that means when it bends, this side will be the concave side. The reason is if you bend it enough like this, it will keep that shape and eventually become weaker and weaker. So you want to have this outside part of the bamboo be the concave side when it bends, because when you bend it like that, it won't keep the shape. So that means that nice and glossy side is going to be up against the bamboo. You just want to get that in there real nice and tight. Usually helps to hold the bamboo around like this, so as to make sure it doesn't split, just in case you're being a bit too rough with it. That's nice and tight in there. You can see, you can stick that in the ground with enough force. So let's get on. Okay, so next thing we want to do here, we're actually going to be tying this off first. So it doesn't really have to be super exact. The way I like to do this, I'm not entirely sure of the knot, what the name is, but if you know the name, comment it down below, please. So I like to do an adjustable loop here so that it can be tied off to fit this notch right here, and then because it's adjustable, you can adjust how much tension there is on the limb. So what we do, wrap it through once, twice, and a third time. There we go. Okay, and then it just comes through a loop here. Just like that. Make sure that's nice and tight. Okay, so now what this knot gives you is that if you pull it like that, it won't come loose, but if you hold down on the knot, you just get some there. You can actually slide it up and down. Just like that. But see, again, if you pull on it like that, it won't slide. Alright, so then just adjust it to here. We want a decent amount of tension on it when it's strung up, just like a bow. So let's say give it about that much. And make sure this is nice and tight again. Okay. And we could just string that up right there. Actually, might want a little bit more. That's why this loop is nice and adjustable. You can adjust it however far you want. There we go. Okay, yeah, that's feeling a little bit better. Now on this side there, you can see you gotta pull this down with some tension. Stick your finger in there, it's trapped. You can lift it up, it's still trapped. That's what you want. Okay, so now I'm going to actually be working with this in the ground just for the sake of convenience since I'm outside already. So now we're going to be attaching our little loop right here that will keep our stick down or toggle, whatever it's called. So we just string it through the first pair of the front pair of holes. There we go. Get that out. Okay, and then keep it nice and tight here, and we'll see how much we need to keep that. So we want this string right here. We want it to be about perpendicular to the ground when it's all the way down. So I want this to be tied off right around here so that it will fit on top of it right there. Okay. So let me get that tied. And cut off the excess here. There. Just want to make sure not to cut off anything we still need. There we go. There we go. Okay. And so when this is down, we'll hold it right there. Just right about where we want it. All right. Okay. All right. Now is our final step. We gotta tie our little trigger stick up. So to get this, first I'm just going to form a clove hitch on the end of this. So then that wraps around really nice and tightly with the T in our trigger. Just kind of wrap it around right there. You see. I'm going to actually start it on the back of it. On the back, or rather the outside of the bamboo, as you see there. Then we're going to wrap around once to secure it. There we go. Flip it over. Overhand knot. Gotta get that right there, nice and tight. Okay. And then we tie it off. Just another overhand knot. This is pretty much right here, I'm doing sort of a reef knot, but on a flat surface. Keep it nice and secure so it won't slip. Here we go. It doesn't have to be super tight with this one, just as long as it doesn't slip off the tee. And one thing I'd like to note, we always want it to be tied off on this end of the bamboo, the same side with the shelf on it, because then when it's being pulled up, it'll be pulled up more like that rather than sort of outwards, away from the shelf. Okay, I'm just gonna put a little knot here just in case it wants to slip. So this way, it has virtually no chance of coming off. I can cut off the excess there. Hold it down. There we go. Okay, so this trigger will fit right in here. Now we need to figure out how long we need it on here to be tied off so that it stays level with this. We need about this much string or so, if I'm correct. Let's grab this, pull it down. Oop. Yeah, right around there. Okay. So for this, we can unstring our limb. So I'm gonna do the same thing as before, just sort of form a clove hitch and then tie around it a few times so it doesn't slip. Now it can help if you cut notches in these. You don't really have to if your knotting's really good, but for the sake of time I'm just going to tie it up like this. Nice and secure. Actually, test it out just down here. Now that's a lot better. Okay. Now we can tie it off. Make sure it's real nice and tight. And I'm just doing a simple overhand knot again. Plus an extra knot here so that it won't slip off. You want to make sure all of these knots are really nice and secure, because any slip-ups can cause it to trigger randomly, or for when it is triggered a whole bunch of times for it to stop working. So best to keep these all nice and tight. There we go. Okay, so now here's our completed trap. So all we need to do to set it is pull this down, get the string right on top there, put our trigger right into the hole right there, and make sure that shelf is locked on. Keep it right there, and then dress our snare so it goes all the way around. And that's all there is. I'll do a close-up of it now. Okay, so what we do here, take this down, get this looped string right here, hook it onto the end, right there, so it stays. Grab our trigger, put it into the hole right there, and we've got this little shelf right here, so that hooks onto the edge there, so it stays just like that. And then last thing we do, we just dress up our snare right here, so it goes all the way around. So then when our rat goes in there, it touches that trigger, and it gets caught. Okay, so that does it for this video. If you'd like to check out some of my other trapping videos, check out this playlist right here. And if you'd like to see a couple of places where I learned to make this trap, aside from in Taiwan, you can check out these videos right here. And otherwise, thank you for watching, and bye.